for this. So hello everyone. I'm Wei Jiaxu. I'm the research scientist and manager for the Scalable Computational Intelligence Group at Tech. So welcome to this week's Smart City Talk series. This talk series is part of our Good System project for the Smart City, a good system for the smart cities. So we have this bi-weekly talk, and each time we feature research progress and the latest needs and use case. And for today, we are very happy to have Charles Puma from the who is IT project manager at the City of Austin to give us an overview about the recent interlocal agreement between UT and the City of Austin. So without further ado, I will pass the mic to Charles.
All right, excellent. Can everybody hear me okay? Still coming in, Weijia?
It's a little bit small, so can you maybe
A little
I
bit.
don't know if you can
Okay.
increase the volume or
Let me see. I will just try to speak louder.
that should work.
All right. Okay. All right. So, yes, as Wei just said, I'm Charles Permo. I'm an IT manager with the City of Austin's Innovation Office. Thank you very, very much for having me. This is my favorite thing right now to talk about is our collaboration and what we've set up with UT. So again, very excited to be here. A core mission of our innovation office is a focus on our strategic initiatives at the city, and I'll talk a little bit about what that means later. But we've put a increasing focus on research when it comes to these strategic outcomes that the city has been working towards for the last few years. And the Innovation Office's mission is to kind of be an internal consultant to enable excellence in research and innovation by providing the guidance and tools and support to city staff. And one important way to accomplish this mission is by facilitating and enhancing collaborations with UT and other academic institutions. So I'll give you a little bit of a background very briefly, and then we'll talk about, so the agenda, I'll talk a little bit about background. I'll talk about some current projects to give you an idea of the type of things we're working on. I'll talk a little bit about city interests, and then timeline and budget, and as well as kind of walk us through the process. So if there is an idea or a research project that you'd like to work with this on, how do you get that started? So in 2019, the city collaborated with UT Good Systems, which I'm sure everyone here is familiar with Good Systems. And we held a couple of events with UT. We had between 30 to 50 folks from UT and between 30 and 50 folks from the city of Austin show up from across the campus and across the city to kind of do some matchmaking and talk about potential projects, mostly dealing with AI and machine learning. Those events were really such a success that we were able to form 9 project teams from those events, and that UT provided funding, 1 year of funding for those 9 projects. So based on that great success, we sat down with Jennifer Lyon Gardner, Tessa Green, Mark Featherstone, a few other people, and said, "Hey, look, there's obviously a lot of interest, and our philosophical approaches to collaboration and research seem to be very, very in line between the city and UT. So how can we keep this going?" So we talked to a lot of people, and really the main thing that held people back was the process, and in particular, how long it took to do something with the city or between the city and UT. So based on that feedback, we went and looked at both organizations went back and looked at our processes and thought about how we can normalize those processes. And on the city side, the thing that we identified was the contracting and the council approval was really what was the most difficult for the city and the most time consuming. And the reasons were that it was not standardized. It was all over the place. Each of our 40 plus departments and offices at the city had different ways of doing things, different contact people, et cetera, et cetera. So we put a interlocal agreement in place that standardized the terms and conditions of of the contracts and things like data sharing clauses, for example, standardize those across the city so that every department at the city has the same document and the same templates to work from. Then we also looked at the council approval process. So some of you may know, when the city decides to spend a certain amount of money, I don't remember, the threshold is around $60,000 these days. It has to go to council for approval, and that can take at least 2 to 3 months just to do that. So in between taking a long time to get relationships going and contracts in place and going to council, it was taking at least 8 to sometimes up to sometimes up to 16 months to get something in place with the city. So what we've been able to do with putting this master interlocal agreement in place, which was approved by council in October of 2020, we've been able to make the process much easier for both city staff and UT researchers. Council does not have to approve projects anymore, so we get to basically skip that step. And what we've found is that we've been able to get it down to where, starting it from initial conversation with the city and UT to actually having some sort of contract in place, doing it as fast as within 10 weeks. So really going from around a year to down to 10 weeks is what we've been able to do. That's very that's on the fast side. These are projects where people basically already knew what they were doing. They already had budget, etc. But I just wanted to say that now it's much easier and faster to work with the city of Austin. So what that interlocal agreement, and I'll call it an ILA from this point forward, does is provide the city $1.5 million in pre-approved funding for the next 5 years, for a total of $7.5 million. That does not mean that money is set aside and already earmarked for this, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But that just means that we have the city staff has leeway up to $1.5 million a year to work with UT on projects. So I'm going to put projects that we've worked with UT and currently working with UT. I will go ahead and put that in the chat. There's going to be, I think, 10 or 12 of those. To give you an idea of the types of projects that we've done and that we're doing, there's a lot, so I'm not going to spend the time reading each one of those. But I think if you glance through, you'll get an idea that there's a pretty good range of projects, both in scope and size, and as well as topic area that the city is interested in. These have all successfully have a contract, have project teams in place working on them. In particular, the top two, Austin Housing Analysis and the EMS Response Optimization. Those projects that came out of the original Good Systems collaboration that I mentioned back in 2019, and those projects have actually finished. So we've got links to, in the case of the Austin Housing Analysis, the links to the solution of the product that they've created and findings, and then the second one about the EMS response time. That's more of a blog post that talks about the project and about the results. But all the rest of the projects here are in process. Some are very close to being finished, but all the rest are currently in process. We also have a project it's a joint facility between the city and the county and the state that deals with emergency response. And we're currently working with the School of Architecture to put together a scope and a budget to create a digital twin of a portion of that facility. So that's just another example of some projects. What I'm going to also do is I'm going to put a link. I find this very helpful when I talk to people because the city is a very big and complex organization, and some folks don't have any idea where they would even start or what the city even does. The city has around 50 different departments and offices. I just put the org chart in the chat. They're very small depart or offices that have just a couple of people with a very little budget to to very large departments like our IT group or our utilities. Big staff, basically their own organizations with a lot of budget. But you'll see that there's a lot of things that the city has purview over and services that we deliver that many folks just simply don't realize. So I put the org chart in there for you to get a good idea of everything that the city does, and it might maybe spur some ideas for potential projects. So if you're looking through these lists of projects, you're looking at the org chart, you're thinking about the work that you currently do at the university, work that you'd like to do, classwork, and you say, yes, I would like to do a project with the city of Austin. How do I start? What does that process look like? I will put another link in the chat. So this is our intake form. So this intake form is available to city staff as well as UT researchers and PIs. So this is the form that really kicks off the process. So if you have an idea, and it can be very early stages, it does not have to be fully baked, and you don't have to already know people at the city or already have budget. This can be just, hey, I've got a great idea. I think this has some legs. I want to see if there's any interest at the city. You fill out this form. We try to keep it as easy and as quick to fill out as possible. You fill out that form, it'll send an email to me and then my counterpart at UT, who is Daniel Arriaga, who hopefully is on the call if we have any questions for Daniel. But we get notified of those things, and then we have a tracking process that we've set up to track all of these ideas and these requests that come in. You'll get notified that your project has been submitted. Depending on the project, we may be able to, right off the top of our head, know somebody at the city or the university, or sometimes it might take us a while. But we do kind of go through this vetting and matchmaking process between the city and the university. Once we identify people on both ends, representatives from both organizations, we set up a series of initial meetings, discovery and exploratory meetings. Sometimes these can be, just one meeting and everybody hits it off and they say, yes, let's do this. And sometimes there's maybe 3 or 4 meetings before we really settle on a scope and a budget. But those exploratory meetings happen. And again, if everyone agrees that we want to move forward with this, then what happens is UT goes back and puts together more of a formal proposal. And we don't dictate what that proposal needs to look like or anything like that. Whatever the PI is used to doing is totally fine with us. So we'll take that proposal, take it back to the city. The city looks at it. The people in departments get their management review and approval. And then we put together what is known as the work order. And the work order is essentially the contract. And it has all the terms and conditions already pre-negotiated and approved by both organizations. So all that the PIs and the city people have to worry about is putting in, scope, timeline, description, deliverables, milestones, budget, your typical project information. Again, that part does not take very long. It's pretty easy. Once we have an approved work order, our legal team reviews it, and then the UT's contract office reviews it. Then it goes back to the city for a final signature by the department's executive, the department director, for example. And then you're ready to work on your project. So we don't have to go to council. We don't have to go through any lengthy negotiations on terms and conditions, anything like that. So again, we can go from someone submitting a pre-proposal through that intake that I just put in the chat to having a contract in place in just a few months. So we've really tried to streamline it and make it easy. I will one thing about budget and these requests that come in from UT. As I said earlier, keep in mind that the city does not, even though we're pre-approved to spend up to $1.5 million a year, that does not mean that we have money earmarked and set aside for this. So I try to make that as clear as possible when talking to UT folks, is that there's no expectation that there's money at the city for any of these projects. So come to it with the already maybe having some money from UT, having an idea of some external sources, like grant funding, for example, or be ready to work with the city on putting together a budget. We tell the city people the same thing. There isn't money set aside, so you've got to make sure to have some budget. The other thing I mentioned for that is since there isn't already budget and maybe a brand new idea comes up, the city does their budget once a year. So you may be looking at the next fiscal year for a project. So if you would submit a project in the next few months, it's likely that the city does not have budget for it, but you could start talking about building a budget out for it so it's included in the department's budget for the next fiscal year. So just kind of give you an idea that also be prepared to think about more of a long-term thing for when the city may have budget. As far as budget goes, we have some $0 projects, and we just used the ILA because we had it in place and it made it very, very easy to get an agreement in place. I think our most expensive project right now is $250,000. That's around homelessness. I think the average cost of projects is around $90,000. Once you get around the $60,000 area at the city, again, this is just for reference. That's kind of when things start to be or sound or seem expensive to the city. But between 90 and 100,000 is typically where a lot of these projects right now sit at. Let's see here. So I talked a little bit about timeline and budget. Okay, so the city has, it's called SD23, Strategic Direction 2023. And then you can just Google that. I didn't have a link handy for that. But it tells you really what the city is really focusing on for the next few years. And it's very obvious basic things like mobility, health, lifelong learning, culture, effective government that works for all. But I point these out because if you frame your project ideas within one of these strategic outcomes, you're more likely to get interest and more likely to get funding at the city if one of your ideas or projects ties very closely with one of these strategic outcomes. So just kind of another hint there. All right, I've gone for a long time and said a lot, so I will stop now and open it up for questions. Do you want to introduce yourself, Daniel, and kind of talk about your role?
It seems we cannot hear you, Daniel.
Muted.
Sorry, everybody. Having some technical difficulties here. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Daniel Arriaga. I'm the Senior Special Projects Coordinator in the BPR's office. As Charles mentioned, I've been working with the city for a little over a year now. So we've been collaborating to try and get our PIs connected to the city. Obviously, it's a work in progress, but I think we're making great strides. We're hoping to sort of get in a rhythm where we have both teaming workshops, maybe sometime in the spring or summer, and then have these informational sessions. Of course, if you all have any questions, directly related to your role and how you might want to connect with the city, I'm happy to answer any questions. Charles shared the form, as he mentioned, that is probably the most useful tool for us to sort of keep track of these requests and try and make connections and match PIs. So if you have any questions about the form, additionally, feel free to reach out to me as well. But yeah, I'm happy to be here, and it's great to be working with Charles, and I think we're gonna continue to make great connections and great strides in the coming year.
I just put the SD23 document in the chat for people to look at, and again, this is just kind of a tip or a trick. The more that you can use language and that your project will kind of move the dial on any of these items and these priorities for the city, the more likely we are to get defined budget and get a successful proposal accepted.
Yeah, that's a good point, Charles. So I think one of the hesitancies on the part of the city when we first initiated the ILA was, they didn't want for it to be a one-sided relationship where UT was sort of driving the agenda. We wanted to make sure that we're matching the city's needs. So I always tell my UT folks, kind of think of the city as a sponsor. Like they're the ones who should really be issuing a call of sorts. We're sort of matching our expertise to their needs, and that's why it's really important, especially if you're a UTPI and you're submitting a form, that you try and align it with one of those SD23 goals. So that's also built into the form as well. So you would select one of those goals when you submit your form.
And I know this is a smart city group, and I would say that the timing is better all the time for smart city projects at the city. A few years ago, it was difficult, as you probably know. People didn't really understand what we meant when we were talking about smart city. But now people are really, especially when it comes to things like intelligent architecture, Internet of Things, sensors, how those types of technologies can help us in mobility, in public safety, in public works, in resiliency, homeland security. People are starting to understand that a lot more. So I would say that, like I said, the timing and the opportunities are getting better and better all the time with the city when it comes to smart city projects.
Aya, you have a question? Just go ahead and ask.
Yeah, I was wondering, across all of those three directions that the city are thinking, do you have any priorities in term of like city needs?
They change, honestly, depending on what's going on in the real world and what's going on politically. So when homelessness is the hot topic in the news, homelessness is one of those priorities. So they do tend to change. I would say the one that's called government that works for all, that is a more of an internal facing set of objectives. So that would probably be the less of a priority. But anything that impacts the community and residents, and especially if something is really hot topic at the time around mobility or obviously health and human safety or public safety, are big all the time. So you kind of have to gauge, what's going on in the real world and what's going on in the news and politically. But I would say probably that right now, public safety and health are probably the top topics, and then homelessness is probably kind of a subtopic among those things.
Dev had a question. Dev, hand up. Dev.
Thanks.
First of all, thank you, Charles. Thank you, Daniel. I want to endorse that what the UT and city are doing in terms of making this in such a fluid, permeable process. This is really fantastic. I've already been working with the city on few things, and having this mechanism which speeds things up and makes it modular is exceptionally helpful. And we feel encouraged to continue working rather than finding it as an impediment in trying to make this work. So thank you for that. And I wanted to pass that feedback. It has sped things up, which is another positive thing. It has made the process simpler. Now, the way the funding has worked, or the way the funding will work essentially, is that there is a project that will have one sponsor at the city end, for instance. They need it, and we will work with them to make that in an effective way. And that is a great model. However, there are some projects or some topics, such as smart cities, such as sustainability, which are going to be beyond a specific department, a specific group. And it will be really nice if we have a mechanism to conduct some sort of a, on a routine basis, summer schools or a winter workshops where the knowledge transfer is undertaken. We have done these kind of things through UNESCO in working with some of the international cities and so forth, and trying to where we create what is the technology, what are the things, and it shouldn't be the burden of one specific department at the city level. So I would like to suggest this as a ways to make this a little bit more organic and ongoing. And I want to hear your thoughts, how this could be possible. Does it require an RFP, or does it require some sort of a concept note we submit to you and then build off that?
I don't think it requires anything formal documentation or process wise. It's just, I think we would come together and brainstorm and design what that type of interaction would look like. Who would be involved, the frequency, what would the format be? As Daniel mentioned, we do want to get to a point where we're having at least 2 events a year between the city and UT. Because this is still a very new thing for a lot of people, these events tend to be very high level and just informative. But before COVID, we were doing more of those types of events that you suggested. So I think yes, we would like to get to the point where we're doing those types of things. So I would say if you have an idea for something along those lines, reach out to me and let me know, and let's meet and talk about what it is. I mean, even if it isn't specific to the ILA, but it's more of a a smart cities focused thing, I'd be more than happy to advocate for something like that happening at the city.
Yeah, I would echo all those sentiments, and I would just say, Dev, if you maybe have some information or maybe anything that's public as far as how those were structured. I mean, we're always open to new ideas of how to team and workshop, and I'm happy to just like Charles, if you want to schedule a time, we can meet and go over how that might look.
Thank you. I'll work with Vijay and Jungfeng and get back with some sort of a concept idea forward with some template or how it has worked before. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think another thing is so sometimes we'll have a faculty or researchers has a mind with the city people, and they have ideas and they want to start, but it's often the process is little bit confusing, and whether like they need to submit an one first, or they can just go ahead to do something, or then submit some later. What's the requirement? It would be good like we have a someone like maybe you guys can fill in that role as sort of like a champion for us with the city to say, oh, this is maybe need some research support, or we want to push this one forward. That would be great, because sometimes like our counterpart in the city and the less familiar with the process of this process for sure. So
I just want to be very specific about what we just saying. So Weijia, Dev, and I are working intensively with the Austi Fire and the wildfire department. We have created a website for them to show lively fire locations, and we're in a stage trying to move to the next level. So basically, we would appreciate any comment or support from both of you to move it to the next level, because we firmly believe this is a very in the heart of safety and health for Austin citizens.
Yes, I'm not too up to speed on that one. So let's set up some time to talk more about that. I just don't know anything about it, but I'm happy to help advocate for anything I can.
Yeah, it's always helpful if we can have more of that information, just because we tend to see things at like a 50,000 foot view. And so if you all could give us some of that background and that context, it would be very helpful. And, you know, lessons learned are always appreciated.
Yeah, and we're also very much on the front end of projects. So if you've been working with the city for a few years, we might not have any idea about that relationship. Ours are kind of the new things in the past couple of years. So if anyone has already a current relationship with the city and wants to talk about how to augment that or improve it, maybe get it more formalized, let us know there as well, because that would help us learn how we can help out in these areas where there's already a fairly mature relationship or project in place.
Yeah, thank you, Charles. We're definitely gonna. We already pulled this out.
No, so thanks, Charles, and it's already 4 minutes past 11:30, so we just want to wrap up here, and we can follow up with you with some more detailed ideas. And I just want to quickly show, like, we have updated your your talk description with the links you mentioned, the org chart and the idea submission form link, and the strategic direction for the 2013 for the cities. And if anyone in the during the talk or reviewing the talk, they can feel free to visit our website smartcity.tech.utech.edu and look at those links and submit the ideas there. We will posting the video here as well, and so hopefully more people will understand and know the process better there. If you have more links and for me to put up, and I will be happy to update this later on as well, right? All right, so with that, let's just wrap up for today. And thank you again for Charles and Daniel for the wonderful talk and the very informative presentation today. Thanks everyone for coming, and we will see you in 2 weeks with another wonderful talk. Bye.
Thank you all. Take care now.
Thank you, Charles. Thank you, Daniel.
Yes, take care. Bye.